am the chosen one. Be brave, Professor. Be brave like my mother.
How do you feel?
Excellent. Really excellent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 23, Horcruxes. Jenn is back with us.
Hey guys.
And this is an interesting chapter, as you can tell by the title. If you've been with us from the beginning, you know that we have tackled the topic of Horcruxes a time or two in our spoiler sections. Now we don't have to. We can address it fully, at least for the most part. So, in this chapter, we get a couple of different things. We get, obviously, the post-Aragog funeral fallout and getting Slughorn's memory. We get to see what Slughorn's actual memory was. And we get just a whole dialogue between Albus and Harry in the post-memory discussion. And it's a significant portion of this chapter, and it's actually pretty interesting. So, we will cover it all. But we will start with the post-Aragog funeral, and the Felix Felicis is wearing off now. And you can see how everything he's doing is a little bit more, I don't want to say unlucky, but it's losing that lucky nature to it.
Yeah.
So I think you brought up a point in the last episode about how can it really control Filch keeping a door unlocked.
Right.
And now we're seeing it wearing off, and Peeves is around a corner.
Yep.
When you don't need him to be around that corner. And,
yeah.
You know, things like that. Or you're getting back to the portrait too late and the fat lady is now giving you grief. You know, like, things like that where you're like, I don't really need this right now. I have actual important things to do. But he's not as lucky as he was 15 minutes ago. As I mentioned, fat lady changed her password at midnight. Kinda. By the way, it's midnight now. So it lasted a pretty good time.
They were drinking for a while.
Yeah, they were. That was a good time at Hagrid's hut.
I suppose it takes a while to consume 14 buckets of wine.
Still mind-blowing to me. So, because they left like right after dinner, right?
Yeah.
Like, the trio went back to the common room right after dinner.
Yeah.
Which is presumably like 7, 8-ish?
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, it's now midnight. She didn't actually change the password. She got a little spooked when he actually chose to go to Dumbledore about it, or what she thinks is Dumbledore about it.
But that was funny.
Yeah. And the password for those keeping track, tapeworm. She didn't actually change the password. It is still tapeworm. Nearly Headless Nick pops up and informs Harry that Albus is indeed here in the castle. He had thought about turning in for the night, but he apparently still has business to attend to before turning in. So I ask you, Jenn, if he has apparently stated that he has business to attend to before turning in, does he know anything that has happened tonight? Or is it just Albus Dumbledore and he's got a busy schedule? He's got a full schedule anyway.
I don't know that Dumbledore knows. I think Dumbledore has a good intuition.
I have a practical answer that's probably correct, and I have a tinfoil hat answer that's most definitely wrong, but it's still fun.
Go for it.
Which one would you like first?
Let's do the boring one first.
The boring practical one? So what the business probably is Dumbledore was out doing important investigative work, which we'll get to later because he mentions it. But he's out doing what him and Harry are talking about later in this chapter. And then he comes back into his office, and he has all of these portraits of headmasters and headmistresses and all of their collective wisdom at his disposal. So his business before he turns in is most likely relaying some of that to them and being like, can I get 2 cents? Hey, what might this be? What might that be? Am I interpreting this correctly? You know, just kind of like a vent session of just like, here's what I've calculated, here's what I got.
So he's throwing stuff at the wall.
Quite literally, yes, but the wall is responding. So, I think that's also, just generally speaking, I think that's part of how Albus is so wise, is he's, especially in his older years, he's good at taking in information, and if he's got literally all of these portraits who are established great witches and wizards in their own right, he would be very, very naive and irresponsible and dumb not to get some feedback.
Okay.
I think. Like, they're literally there to help the headmaster.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
In a variety of ways, which we've seen. That's the practical answer. Like,
Okay.
hey, he's got to, like, maybe get this all out and in the air. The tinfoil hat theory, however, I think is he has been poisoning Aragog for a long, long time in hopes that Aragog would then pass, so that Hagrid would have to get Aragog out. And he knew Slughorn would be interested in the acromantula in him, but he can't go. Slughorn can't go into the Forbidden Forest, so he needs to draw Aragog out. And this is the only way it's going to happen. So, and let's now remember, Aragog is a convicted felon. He's blamed for the Chamber of Secrets. So, there's that. So, he poisons Aragog slowly, gets him to end up passing away. Hagrid has the burial, and he knows that just Aragog being out in the open would lure Slughorn to it. That's how it would go. And then he can use that opportunity. Harry could hopefully grasp that and use it to get the memory, and then off we go. So I think it's just Albus playing a long game.
That's like 8D chess.
Yes. I think it's plausible. Your thoughts?
I am infinitely more in favor of the tinfoil hat theory
Okay.
than the practical theory.
I like it.
So,
I like it. So
new
that's
headcanon.
That's what we are going with. We are going with Dumbledore orchestrated and executed Aragog in a slow, malicious fashion, thus drawing out Slughorn to make him vulnerable to access the memory that we need.
But he's doing it for the greater good.
Oh, Albus always does it for the greater good, as we know. So there's that. If you agree with my tinfoil hat theory, please let us know. Comment at HogwartsAPod on Twitter or Instagram or on Spotify where you're listening to this.
If you don't, tell us what your tinfoil hat theory is.
Oh, we're always down for tinfoil hat theories. We love them. It's probably not my tinfoil hat theory, but that's okay. Especially because he does seem genuinely surprised when Harry shows up and is like, what are you doing here? Oh, you got the memory? This is great. And then he seems a little bit more invigorated to be like, oh, okay, well, I'll put going to bed right now to the side because we got this. So he does seem genuinely surprised and stunned that Harry is there and accomplished it. So I guess my tinfoil hat theory, not so much.
I'm going to argue in favor of your tinfoil hat theory, though, because if he's like playing 8D chess with poisoning Aragog, he's got to be a pretty good actor.
Oh, that's fair. Maybe he's just playing up the oh, man, I had no idea. Oh, Hagrid was having a day today. Oh, man, I can't believe I missed that. I was out of town. I had nothing to do with it. He's got a cover story. Anyway, we eventually get to Slughorn's actual memory. His actual unchanged memory, which is starting off with Slughorn essentially fawning over Tom Riddle obsessively, saying that he'd be the Minister of Magic in 15 years if he just kept supplying Slughorn with all of his treats and goodies and stuff like that. There was a thing that Harry noticed about Tom Riddle that I thought was interesting, where he noticed that Tom Riddle was not the oldest student at this Slug Club meeting. Yet, all of the students seem to look upon Tom Riddle with an air of amazement, adoration, and almost like he's an accepted leader no matter the age or talent level or skill level or whatever, which is an interesting note to take from. Harry's very observant, but I feel like Harry's the most observant he has ever been in these memories. Yes. Which, to his credit, if you were ever to pay attention, now would be the time to pay attention. So give him that credit. But that was an interesting observation.
Maybe he's just really observant when it's something that he cares passionately about.
When he knows that his life is on the line otherwise.
And he's just not observant in any other capacity.
That's fair. Harry also admires the way Riddle ends up asking Slughorn about Horcruxes. He notes the subtle pauses, the nice flattery, just the general casual tone with which he's talking. And he's like, wow, this is really well done. He's not overstating anything. He's not making it super obvious. He's clearly been working up to this for weeks, if not months, like this moment. So it's interesting that Harry kind of clues in on all of that kind of.
I was surprised that he clocked it.
Yeah. I'm telling you, he's on his game in these memories.
Yeah.
He is really on point.
I think it's, like you said, I think it's interesting that Riddle is just the natural leader of the group. And that seems to be fitting for him and his personality.
Have you ever encountered someone that just has that charm about them? That's like, you don't know anything particularly impressive about that person, but for some reason you're just like, yep, I'm with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've run into a handful of people over the course of my life but I guess I'm thinking more of like I'm vibing with the person than like you're a great like leader and I will follow you
like
anywhere.
Idolizing them.
Yeah, like I don't know that I've ever.
This is more like.
This is definitely
idolatry kind of stuff.
Yes, 100%. I don't know that I've ever. I'm trying to think really quickly if there has ever been anyone that I've like immediately decided I would follow based on having a captivative personality.
I know I felt it. I can't peg a specific person off the top of my head, but I know I've just come across someone. Yeah. Yeah, back when we started working at an ice cream store, yes. I have felt that vibe of like, I don't really know all that much about you, but I like you for some reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Like just that vibe of like,
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but you're cool for some reason.
Yes.
Like, and I'm just like attracted to that vibe
yeah.
around a person.
Yeah, that's kind of like, in my mind, that's like the,
yeah.
You vibe with that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he must have that it factor of
it factor. I think it factor is like the best way to describe it. It's something you can't put your finger on, but you're just like, I want to be that, or I want to be like that. I can't even define what that is.
Yes.
But they have it. So we get to the real main point of this whole memory. We get a lot of deep information about what a Horcrux is. A Horcrux is the word used for an object in which a person has concealed part of their soul. You split your soul and hide part of it in an object outside of the body. Even if one's body is attacked or destroyed, one cannot die. Part of the soul remains earthbound, which I feel like is an interesting way to say that. Earthbound?
Yeah.
That's just an interesting choice of words.
Yes.
It takes an act of supreme evil to split the soul. Murder. Killing rips the soul apart. Then they place the soul inside an object using a spell, which Slughorn did not know, or at least he's very adamant that he does not know. And what do you think about just that background information on the Horcrux before I continue?
So I think it's really interesting. It kind of confirms a lot of things that maybe have been suspected. What I find interesting in all of this, though, is so Dumbledore says it has to be an act of supreme evil to split the soul. And then they talk about murder. Is that the only thing that splits the soul?
That's how I read it, because I had the same thought you had, of like...
Because I feel like there are worse things than murder. Okay. Murder is obviously very bad. You should not kill people. It's the official stance of this podcast.
We can get Jen's sound clip of that and then just rubber stamp it.
But I feel like, if he's talking about acts of supreme evil, I feel like torture has to be up there, because I feel like torture can actually be fairly long-lasting. I feel like in some cases you can argue that torturing someone and keeping them alive for an extended period of time is worse than just killing them off the bat.
Well, to that point, look at the Longbottoms.
Yes.
Result from torture.
Yeah. The intent to harm someone 100% in an irreparable way, that should split your soul.
The only thing I could think of that would be a counter to that is there's no wiggle room on murder. You're alive and then you're dead.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid, definitive.
Yeah.
You can wiggle on... can't believe I'm making this argument. You can wiggle on how much is too much for like torture or like the Imperious Curse or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, people can make that. I guess they're more subjective. That being said, to counter my counter, if I'm allowed to do that, for any of the unforgivable curses, the whole bit is you have to mean it.
Right.
Therefore, you have to intend some sort of harm be placed upon this person.
Right.
So if I'm interpreting this outside of the specific written words defining the rules of a Horcrux here, that we have here, I would say you can split your soul after, like, to do what you did to the Longbottoms, I feel like is a grievous enough action that you'd be able to split your soul. There's so much talk about the soul here. How many times did I just say the word soul? Like 2 or 3 times just in my explanation of what a Horcrux is?
Yep.
So the idea of killing someone is you are ending that person's life and you're ending that soul's life. And it seems, the way they're talking about it here, the soul is inherently crucial to a witch's or wizard's being. So they take that very seriously, and yeah. So I think that might be why the killing curse here might get more hate than the other two, at least in their world.
I can understand
that. Makes sense?
Yeah.
But anyway, do you have anything else on that part before I keep going?
No, keep going.
Okay. So after Horace explains the nature of a Horcrux to Riddle asks a follow-up question about possibly creating 7 of them.
I like that he doesn't just go like, what about like 2 or 3? He just immediately jumps to like, how about 7?
He states that it isn't 7 the most magically strong number, so what about 7? And Slughorn is like horrified. He's like, wow, how could you even think of 7? 1 is horrible enough.
Slughorn is like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, at this point, Slughorn's already a little bit on edge. Now he's like...
warning bells are going off.
Red flags everywhere. It's like, this is a conversation I need to get out of quickly.
I find it funny that Tom spent so much time like preparing to broach the subject and then immediately is just like, how about 7?
Well, Harry also talks, again, Harry, very observant. Harry also talks about after he gets certain bits of information throughout this conversation, he's getting that glint of greed in his face. His charming face is disappearing and he's getting glints of greed. And then at the end of this, it's like gleeful joy, but not in the gleeful joy that makes someone look more attractive. It's the gleeful joy in which someone looks more animalistic evil.
I thought that was really interesting because I think this is the second time now that he's mentioned that it when Riddle gets that look in his eye that it makes him look less human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very astute observation by Harry. Once again, look at Harry. Roll. Yeah, my goodness.
You go, Harry.
Slughorn does vehemently oppose any idea of possibly creating 7. I think it's worth noting that. He also says that Horcruxes have been banned at Hogwarts. And particularly, Albus Dumbledore is a particularly fierce opponent of the subject. Which I feel like is an odd thing to say, because to bring up Albus Dumbledore here, when Albus isn't technically the headmaster.
Is it possible he's like second in command at this point?
Yeah, he could be the deputy headmaster.
So maybe that's where it's coming from?
Yeah, maybe that.
I'm trying to
make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, he could be the deputy headmaster. He could be McGonagall's role now.
Right.
Then that would make sense. Before I actually continue on, question for you.
Yes.
Slughorn, when he gives over the memory, says, "Don't think badly of me, Harry.
Yeah.
I am ashamed of what this memory shows."
Yeah.
Should he be, is my question.
I think yes and no. I think that I understand why he's ashamed of it, and we see that in his altered memory where he shuts down Riddle instead of giving him answers. And I think that he regrets not being able to see or not accepting at the time that Riddle was asking for nefarious reasons and that Riddle was taking advantage of him. So I think that is more so the part that he regrets, is that it's not a great look on him that he trusted someone who ended up being Voldemort. And that's kind of the impression that I got, where that's where he's telling Harry, like, don't think too badly of me, that he just ignored all of the red flags that were just popping up all over the place and just kept talking to this guy out of some misplaced belief or denial that it wasn't as bad as he thought. At the same time, I don't really know that it's fair of him to put that expectation on him, that he should have seen it coming and that he shouldn't have given Tom the benefit of the doubt, or that he should have expected Tom to become Voldemort levels of evil. I think he could have exercised a better judgment in terms of maintaining a teacher-student relationship with him, but I don't think that he should be blaming himself for really anything past that.
Yeah, I think Slughorn's overselling it a little bit. Obviously, he did give what ends up being the Dark Lord answers to what might be immortality, so that's a problem. But it's not like he was terribly willing about it. He tried to vehemently be like, hey, Tom, this is not good magic. This is not okay. Oh my gosh, why would you even consider doing that? That's absurd. That's horrifying. That's like, he was relatively negative.
Yes.
Towards Tom about being like, you shouldn't be doing this or thinking about it, or, you know, this is academic, right? Because this is crazy.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was encouraging. Like, when I read the beginning and middle of this book where Albus is like, oh, he's deeply ashamed of what he did in this memory, and oh, Slughorn is so unbelievably adamant about hiding what he did in this memory, your brain starts going into like this imaginative state where you're like, oh, what did he say in here?
Yeah.
And yes, he gave him information, but it's not like he encouraged him to do this. It's not like he was positive in how he was giving this information.
Yeah.
So I get why he would be ashamed, but I don't think he should be as harsh on himself as he is. And I think it's maybe a credit to Slughorn as to how ashamed he actually is, where it's like, oh, I made a mistake and it's a bad one.
Yeah.
And I think he feels remorse for that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's complicated, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's after seeing the memory as it is wholly, I don't think Slughorn looks all that bad.
No, I don't think he looks good. I think he kind of just looks more neutral to me in it. Like, I get why he's embarrassed. I get why he's reluctant to show people. I get why he's beating himself up. And I think a lot of that is the context of, over the years, it's become, you know, an incredibly heavy topic, especially knowing that it led to the death of one of his favorite students. So I understand all of that context around it, but I think in the moment, like, he doesn't know that this is what's going to happen. It's kind of an unreasonable thing to expect to happen.
Yeah.
So I think I understand the embarrassment of, you know, oh man, I should have figured out sooner that I was being manipulated or that I was being taken advantage of. I should have seen the red flags. I totally get that. I don't think he needs to go that far of, oh my god, it's terrible, forgive me.
Side note,
Yeah.
if he marred this memory,
Mm-hmm.
then at some point he would have had to figure out, oh wait, I told Tom Riddle about this. Oh wait, somebody that he worked with is now dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's gone. Hepzibah Smith. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
And then years later he comes back, and rumors and whispers, and Slughorn's a connected guy, so he probably hears things
Yeah.
of Lord Voldemort and all that kind of good stuff. Do you think if he marred this memory, he's put two and two together of like, he's probably actually done it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that I'm wondering if what triggered it was the fact that they thought he was dead and then he came back.
Do you think that's when he eventually clicked?
I would imagine that was when it clicked in his head of, oh, he's back, and he was asking me about ways to come back. So that's not great.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, again, that's not a great thing to put on Slughorn, but also, if we're taking that out of it, there's probably, 2 people in the wizarding world that
Figured
put
this
that,
out?
yeah, that put that together. Granted, he's an inside because he was the one asked about it, but still.
Yeah.
We'll move on, I suppose, to the post-memory talk with Albus and Harry, which has its own connotations and in-depth analysis to put on it. So, the first thing Albus does is he says, well, this confirms I was, 1, right, and 2, just how far there is to actually go still. And I think it was on the episode, I know Elizabeth and I have talked about it, and I think we talked about it a little bit on the episode with me, you, and Elizabeth, where it's like, well, what is Albus really trying to get out of this memory?
Yeah.
And I said then it's twofold. He's trying to confirm what his guesses are, which are strong guesses, and
They're very strong guesses.
Yeah, he thinks he's mostly right. He's probably like 95-ish% there, but 95 is not 100. He needs to be 100% sure.
Yeah.
And I think that gives him this. And then he also had assumptions as to, well, if he's doing this, then what's worst case scenario? This is worst case scenario. And I think he got confirmation that the worst case scenario is also very plausible.
Yes.
Harry notes, once again, very observant, that all of the portraits are awake and quite attentive to what this conversation
This is
will
some hot goss.
Yeah, this is, and again, this is also what gives me that vibe of, like, I think Dumbledore is coming back from his excursions and, like, literally throwing thoughts against the wall, like you said, and being like, am I right here? Am I on the right path? Does this make sense? Or do any of you know any of the branches of magic that I'm dealing with here? Can you give me any expertise here, there, or wherever? I think he's just this sponge for information, and he's able to retain it, which is what makes him special.
Yeah.
But, anyway, the fact that all the portraits were definitely in on this makes me think there's been some dialogue back and forth.
We have also seen instances, though, where the portraits are also very nosy.
Well, that is true. I mean, drama is drama.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
so, we get into it a little bit more. Albus says, 4 years ago, proof came that Voldy had split his soul. The diary. And the reason he thought that was a memory was acting and thinking for itself, which alarmed him, as it probably should.
I think that's a fair reaction.
He did indicate also that he's aware he didn't specifically encounter it himself, so he's going on what other people have told him, what Harry has told him.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting. So again, for the reason why you need more proof. But the other interesting things he says about the diary is Voldy always intended for it to be passed on, for it to be used, which is interesting. Why? Because you, like Slughorn said, you usually want to protect this. It's a piece of your soul. And here, the plan was for him to openly give it away to someone. Now, how that happened was interesting, and it's part of the reason I think Draco is being seemingly punished by Voldy, and Lucius did some not-so-great things when he thought Voldy was gone, and he just acted upon his own volition, instead of apparently waiting for Voldy's strict orders of when and who to give it to and all of that good stuff.
In Lucius's defense, why would you expect Voldemort to come back from the dead?
That is a fair point. However, I don't think Voldy was particularly accepting of that excuse.
No.
So I can only imagine Voldy. You did what? That, as Dumbledore said, that would have been a sight to behold, that anger coming from him. Dumbledore also goes to his next bit of proof about the graveyard scene in Goblet of Fire, where Harry told him that Voldy said, quote, "I, who have gone further than anybody along the path that leads to immortality," end quote, when talking to his Death Eaters. To most people, that's like, oh, he's bragging or he's being intimidating or whatever. To Dumbledore, that's like, oh no, that's not a throwaway line. That is him bragging, yes, but bragging with stuff to back it up.
Yeah.
Harry questions why the Sorcerer's Stone wouldn't be an option. And Albus reminds him, yes, that was an option for him at one point. But it's not an option long term because, and this is an interesting note that Albus makes, he would be dependent on something. He'd be dependent on the Sorcerer's Stone for the potion. And Voldemort can't be dependent on anyone or anything. That's an interesting personality quirk that he's paid attention to.
Yes.
Albus does believe he's made 7 Horcruxes. And Harry goes, you've got to be kidding me. And I love what Albus says in response is like, I'm glad you've grasped the magnitude of our problem. Like,
yeah.
Because Harry goes into this whole thing about, like, it could be anything, anywhere, and it could be invisible. And Dumbledore's like, yep, that is accurate.
Yep.
Great. So Albus does correct him on a couple of things, though. One, it's not technically 7, it's 6, because the 7th is Voldy himself, and that soul that's in Voldy, the man now, is the wisp that was the half-existence, or whatever, that Voldy was in the intermittent time before he got his body back. Voldy himself will indeed have to be destroyed for that piece of soul to be gone and the Horcruxes to be eliminated. So it's going to be the last thing.
Yeah.
He also says 2 have already been destroyed. The diary by you, Harry. You destroyed the diary. Yay. Which was also, by the way, Harry mentions like, well, the diary wasn't a particularly meaningful item. Why would that be significant in some way? And Albus said it's evidence of him being the heir of Slytherin, which to Voldy would be a monumentally important thing.
Yes.
So that's why a seemingly innocuous object would be important. Also, Marvolo's ring has been destroyed by Albus. And now we finally get the whole reason why his hand is so withered and blackened. Because if not for, quote, prodigious skill by himself and timely action by Snape, Albus could have died immediately, or not long thereafter. And he also says the ring was hidden in the ruin of the Gaunt's house, protected by many powerful enchantments. I'm just going to ask you a fun little random question. What do you think some of those enchantments might have been?
I hope one of them is if you get too close, you get the hiccups. Not letting that go.
You're going a Draco Malfoy prank?
Yeah.
Prank potion as a potential... Fair enough. I was going to say...
It's a difficult question to answer.
I got a potential option for you.
All right.
Wouldn't it be cool if... Because the Gaunt house, if we remember it from a couple of different memories, is an intimidating place. It's a rundown, haunted house-looking place.
Yeah.
And possibly the most intimidating thing about it was Morphin. Looking crazed with knife and a wand. Wouldn't it be cool if somehow, and I have no idea how he would have done this, but magic is the answer. If he could have created a spell that would give you like a reincarnation of sorts of Morphin.
That would be cool.
And you had to like
duke it out.
Yeah, battle like this. I don't want to call it like a Patronus-like version of Morphin. Like a ghostly Morphin, maybe.
Okay. I mean, that would be pretty cool. See, all of my thoughts on this are more of like Looney Tunes style. My thought when you asked me that actually just went to it's disguised as something else and it's disguised as something that's meant to make you lose interest. Because that's similar to some of the protection spells that we've seen with Hogwarts and the Quidditch World Cup.
Yeah.
Pitch. So my mind went to that of like things we've seen, or like maybe it's not the full size, maybe it's smaller, maybe it's disguised to look like something else. It's got other wards that are protecting it. Maybe, you know, it's something like you said, you have to solve something or do something or beat something in order to get access to it. But personally, I like to think it's if you go to grab it, it jumps somewhere else. And then you have this image of Dumbledore like chasing it around the old decrepit house as it's like bouncing around like a Looney Tunes thing.
Then it's like the just gif of the guy holding the fishing rod being like, oh, gotta be faster than that.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta be quicker.
Yeah. He goes to grab it and it like jumps behind him and then he goes to grab it again and then it jumps behind him again and then he goes to grab it and he thinks that he's got it and then he turns around and it's like doing a little dance behind him because he missed it.
And he can't get it from magic. He's got to actually physically do it.
Yes.
Like, that'd be a clever enchantment.
Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this. Can Jen and Dan think of creative magical options for protecting this Horcrux? If you have your own, please let us know.
I'm so sorry, guys.
She went the Looney Tunes route. I went the more scary horror route.
Refined approach.
Yeah. Moving on. They tried to think of potential other Horcruxes. Not the diary, not Marvellous Ring. And again, to his credit, look at me complimenting Harry all the time. To Harry's credit, he jumps up and says, Slytherin's Locket, Hufflepuff's Cup.
He's really keyed into these memories.
This is the most focused he's ever been.
Yes.
Maybe will ever be. Like, he is locked in.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore's like, yes, I do indeed think they are Horcrux number 3 and Horcrux number 4. And the other two, however, are a little bit of a mystery. So they get into this kind of conversation about what may or may not be, and they think possibly objects of the other founders, which makes a lot of sense given Voldy's love of the school and his connection there, and obviously they're potentially prodigiously powerful artifacts.
And we know that he's already expressed, like what Harry is saying, there is clear, it's not conjecture, there's clear-cut evidence in the form of the House Elf's memory that he killed for 2 founders' artifacts.
And he showed quite a greed towards them.
Yes.
Like, he wanted them badly.
Right, so it's not conjecture, we know he had it in his possession and he was very keyed into it. So that's a reasonable conclusion.
Very reasonable, yeah, absolutely. Albus says that he's not exactly aware of any particular Ravenclaw artifacts that might be out there for Voldy to acquire, nor is he aware of any that might be in the castle.
That surprises me. That Dumbledore doesn't at least have... I don't expect him to know whereabouts of specifics, but I find it interesting that they know 3 of the 4 founders, what their magical artifacts are. It's surprising because Dumbledore, I feel like, normally has pretty solid leads on things.
Unfortunately, Albus can't perform a quick Google search. We're a little bit before the time of Google, I think, in the 90s. Also, he doesn't have a computer or a phone. Not that a phone in the 90s would work either. But anyway, Google search not an option for Albus.
Couldn't he just ask Jeeves?
Yes, I suppose he could have stumbled in to some Muggle library and punched in Ask Jeeves search engine. No, if anybody's out there, we just dated ourselves terribly.
Metafilter. Yahoo search.
Yahoo search engine is another one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Go ahead and make an AOL chat room. I need to stop talking.
He does, however, know of the only known Gryffindor artifact and where that is, and it happens to be directly behind him.
I love that he can just turn around and be like, it's hanging on my wall.
The sword. The sword of Godric Gryffindor is the only known artifact of Gryffindor's, which is somewhat amazing. Also, are we counting the hat, considering all 4 founders put their magic into the hat?
That's a good question.
I'm sure Voldy would love to get his hands on the hat.
That'd be a pretty... Well, that poses some questions based on one of the conclusions that Dumbledore is about to draw about what potentially the 6th Horcrux is.
Well, first, after talking about the founders, they say that Harry's asking, well, was that the real reason he applied to Hogwarts as a teacher? And Albus was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's why. He's looking for founders' artifacts, or at least information about the founders.
Makes sense.
Now, to what you were getting towards, the other possible Horcrux, Albus has been very suspicious of Voldy's snake, Nagini. He thinks it acts weirdly. He keeps it oddly close to him at all times, and he seems to have a interesting relationship with it that he doesn't seem to share with his Death Eaters or anybody else for that matter. However, it's an odd choice because it's a sentient being that can think and move. its own.
Yes. Which leads me to my question of, I have no doubt that he saw the Sorting Hat and was like, that could be a cool Horcrux. But then if he put part of his soul into it as a Horcrux, that would affect the hat's temperament.
Yes.
So that might not be great.
You'd think, yeah.
Because then everyone's getting sorted into Slytherin.
Yeah, probably. Or they would lean into Slytherin's maybe more unkind traits that he might value a little bit more than...
Ooh, I like that a lot better. So if he's imbuing himself into it, then he also becomes a presence for determining it.
Yeah.
Which means he would be looking for...
a certain type of Slytherin, not just somebody that might be on the borderline.
I like that.
But, like, really lean in to what Slytherin himself was going for.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And maybe not even Slytherin himself. There's a debate for some future podcast of, is Slytherin really evil? Or is it just Voldy that's just evil? And Slytherin was just, not great.
Yeah, Slytherin's, like, for sure problematic.
Problematic, but problematic and evil are two different things.
That's fair. Ooh, man.
You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's a
Like,
hot
you could be a
topic.
bad person, but you don't have to be evil.
I need to research this.
Fair enough.
I want to have this debate, but I need to research for this.
Future deep dive.
Yeah.
So, Albus also notes that he saves Horcruxes for significant deaths. Not just any death can do. It needs to be a significant wizard. It needs to be a significant moment. He then goes on to say, I think the night of James and Lily's death was supposed to be the creation of a Horcrux, and he just didn't get to do it.
Does he go through, though, which deaths he felt were the notable ones? Does he have a clear picture of what those were?
I'm going to assume that the diary and the ring were Tom Riddle and his parents.
Okay.
Like his father and grandparents.
Okay.
I'm assuming those two were going to be those two deaths.
Okay.
And then from what we go on forward, I don't think Hepzibah Smith would really be a consequential death.
I wouldn't have thought so.
At least to Voldy. Unless it's consequential because it's the moment he gets 2 items from Founders. It could be the moment, not the person. And if it's Hepzibah Smith's line, maybe the cup would be her death.
Okay.
Because it's in her line.
That would make
sense. But then the locket.
Yeah, the locket's kind of a...
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, that's... I think...
And that's just me spitballing off the top of my head.
That's a pretty solid theories.
So Albus tells us that he's been leaving the school to chase Horcrux leads, which is where I said the business he still had to attend to this evening prior to Harry coming in was maybe discussing his findings with the portraits and getting their 2 cents. He now has a buddy to go chase Horcruxes with.
Aww.
He says that Harry can now join the hunt, which, how do you feel about that?
I think it's about time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you agree with Harry? It's like, thankfully, someone finally lets me do something.
I like he asks, and then Dumbledore's like, yeah, sure, and Harry's like, wait, what?
I was not expecting that answer.
No, wasn't expecting. I mean, he's proven time and again he can handle difficult situations. He's saved the school like 80 times at this point.
It's true.
Like, he's directly involved in a lot of these things. Just bring the kid along.
That's fair. Harry does ask another astute question. Can Voldy feel if a Horcrux is destroyed?
He asks a lot of good questions in this chapter.
This is a grade A+ question.
Yes.
And even Albus is like, that is... I don't know that I have an answer to that definitively. Which, how many times does that happen? He's unsure if Voldy can feel a Horcrux being destroyed. Also, he's unsure that Voldy, in his current state, having only 1/7 of his own soul, can feel much of anything. Period. So, there's that. But I guess now we're breaching into the realm of uncertainty, even with the prodigious mind and skill of one Albus Dumbledore. Albus does note, though, however, speaking of uncommon skill, that It will take uncommon skill and power to kill a wizard like Voldy, even without his Horcruxes. So just because we've gotten all of them, and his body is the last one, it is no easy feat.
I mean, that makes sense because you're talking about the guy who killed a ton of people and also split his soul into 7 fragments. So, like, I'd imagine he's a little bit formidable.
But Jen,
Formidable?
did you know that Harry can love? Jen, Harry can love.
Harry can love.
Love, Jen, love! He can love!
I think I understand where Harry's coming from with this, where he's like, dude, come on. Like, you're just going to tell me that my greatest strength is love, and Albus is like, uh-huh.
No, I think Harry's 100% right.
So...
I get where Albus is coming from.
Yeah.
I get it.
It sounds really lame. But when Albus explains it, I feel like it's a little bit more like, oh, okay, I guess it makes sense.
We'll double back on this in the spoiler section. So if you've been listening to us for a long, long time, non-spoiler and spoiler sections, you know I have some thoughts on that Albus quote. So we'll get back to it in the spoiler section. But essentially, what Dumbledore's point is on the whole Harry can love idea is Voldy has created his own enemy.
Yeah.
And by hearing the prophecy and acting upon the prophecy, he has thus initiated it. He's literally set those events into motion now.
Yes.
So he has validated the prophecy.
Yes.
Which is, according to Dumbledore, like the dumbest thing he could have possibly done. If he had just let it be, you don't necessarily know how the future will go. But once you act upon it, well, now that is the future. So now you've just set upon it. And Harry struggles to grasp this. And if you just try to, like, exist, Voldy will try to track you down until the day you die. Like, he will be chasing you forever. Thus, at some point, you're going to have to take a stand. Because you're going to be running for the rest of your life. That's where the prophecy was getting to. One can't live while the other survives. It's the idea that they're destined to, I think Harry says, step in the ring. They're destined to step into the ring against each other at some point.
It's like Batman and the Joker.
Yeah. They're tied together.
Yeah.
Now, because Voldy did that.
Yes.
And Voldy made the prophecy important. He made it inevitable. And I like the in the ring metaphor that Harry brings up. And I also like the idea of him going, you know what? Maybe I should take on the idea of, instead of running, I choose the moment when I stand. Instead of Voldy choosing that moment, maybe it's better and more strategic if I choose it. And I think that's a wise decision. I mean, he got there with a lot of help from Albus.
Yes.
But he did get there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting little conversation between Albus and Harry towards the end of this chapter. Do you have any kind of thoughts on it?
I think it took me a bit when I first read it to wrap my head around what exactly he was saying. I think you did a really good job of articulating exactly why it's become kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of Voldemort's doing. But I do like that Dumbledore highlights that Harry can still love and the meaning behind that.
I understand it. Like the idea of Harry being able to love someone and feeling remorse and sadness and joy and all of these different emotions, and Voldy can't, and the idea that that's why Voldy can't stand to possess you is because he feels all of that and can't cope and can't deal, and it's agonizing to him. Mm-hmm. The idea of being remorseful is agonizing to him. The idea of actually caring for someone is brutal. I get it. I get it. And I get how that limits some of Voldy's potential attacks and how he manipulates and how he functions as a potential combatant. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure Dumbledore is still capable of love. He's still capable of feeling. Mm-hmm. Maybe not to the depth that Harry can. Maybe not to the ability that Harry can. But he's still capable of it. And you know what he still had to do in the Department of Mysteries and in the Ministry of Magic? He had to actually duel Voldemort. He had to duel Tom Riddle, and he dueled spectacularly.
Yeah.
And can Harry Potter duel like that? No. No, he can't. Like,
he can Expelliarmus, though.
Okay, one spell that disarms.
He disarms instead of killing because he loves.
I'm pretty sure Voldy could probably kill you without having his wand in his hand.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't see Harry being able to go toe-to-toe with Voldy like Albus did at the end of Book 5. I'm just saying. But he can love, though. He can love. As we said so spectacularly in the last chapter, when he wanted to go to Hagrid's initially, and the other two in the trio said no. I think that was a remarkable show of... Granted, he also decided no, by the way. He did end up saying no.
Yeah.
He wanted to.
At least he put up a fight.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's more than the other two.
Do you have any more on Harry's love?
I do not.
You don't want to expound any more on the love that Harry has within him?
No, I think I'm good. I enjoyed you expounding on it, though. And the number of facial expressions that you went through.
So annoying. No, we will head to break, and we will wrap it up here for the non-spoiler. We will be back in the spoiler section. We got a couple of interesting topics to talk about. So, love the lav going wan break sound, and we will be right back. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Where is he? Where's my 1-1?
All right, so we are back with the spoiler section of Chapter 23, Horcruxes. And I wanted to pick up right where we left off.
With
the whole Harry can love conversation. And that's what's going to propel him forward in a duel with the Dark Lord. So now that we're in the spoilers, we can actually talk about said duel that takes place.
Yeah.
And I remember having this conversation, a couple of times on this podcast, so apologies for the retread, but also I had it with Zach on the Belated Binge podcast. And both he and I agree that we wanted, in this series, we want Harry to develop into the type of wizard that, he's not going to be Dumbledore. He's not going to be Tom Riddle. Mm-hmm. Okay, but can he be, by the end of his time in this series, a real dueler? Can he be, step into the Order of the Phoenix, upon graduation? Okay. Can he be that talented of a wizard? That formidable? And don't get me wrong, he's come a long, long way in this series. He's obviously, he taught Defense Against the Dark Arts and did it successfully. That's great. But are you putting him on the same level as, Lupin, as Moody, Kingsley? Are you putting him on that kind of level as a combatant? No. And if you're not putting him on that level, how is he going to duel Voldy? And that's where I went into Book 7 thinking, at the end of this book, Snape wipes the floor with him. Snape beats him down without breaking a sweat. And I'm like, if Snape can do that, the Dark Lord over here is a problem.
To be fair to Harry in that situation, he is very highly emotional. So he's not in the right state to be dueling someone.
True. Snape didn't break a sweat.
No, Snape is pretty darn
Snape's talented
good.
Himself.
Yeah.
So I guess just going into Book 7, I'm like, this was a literal thought I had. I don't know how Harry's going to come out on this one. How is Harry going to do this? I can't see a path forward. Mm-hmm. I genuinely don't know how he's going to win. He's gonna win. I don't know how. And one of my other guests that came on, Aaron, for a couple of brief episodes, he said one of his big complaints about the series was the use of the Hallows, the Deathly Hallows. Okay. They're not mentioned at all, ever, until book 7. That's when they become a thing. They might be hinted towards, like with Marvello's ring and the triangle and the.
I was going to say, I think that they're hinted towards.
They're never actually.
But they're not named.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But then it becomes a major plot point. It's the title of the book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
So, why does that bother him? Why does that potentially bother me? It is a little bit of a cheat code. You're literally talking about an unbeatable wand, which Harry obviously ends up with at the end by a miraculous set of events happening. And it's like, he's not skilled enough to duel Voldy. So Kingsley, McGonagall, and Slughorn all end up dueling Voldy. They don't have an Elder Wand. They are dueling him man up. Like just wizard and witch on wizard. They don't have any benefit of that unbeatable wand. The idea of why everyone ended up being so invincible in that battle, and you can make whatever inferences you want, and we will talk about it more when we get there. But the idea that at that point when Harry re-enters the fight, and he sees that visage of Voldy just dueling everybody in the Great Hall.
Yeah.
And why they're not going down goes back to the idea of Harry's love, because Harry does what his mother did for him. He died so that everybody else could live.
Right.
And then when he came back, suddenly Voldy couldn't actually kill anybody because they were all protected, his idea.
Is that that's the...
I believe that's the idea.
Interesting.
Nobody died post Harry coming back from Voldy because Harry made the same sacrifice for them that his mother made for him.
I need to reread the last book.
That's what I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's it. We'll discuss that more when we get there because we'll be refreshed.
Okay. I never got that, but that doesn't mean that that's not how it is. Because I also haven't read the book in a very long time. Book 7 I haven't read in a long time.
Same.
What I was going to ask about the Elder one, though, is how does so Voldemort had the Elder Wand.
He has the physical wand. But the magic transfers.
Magic, right. So if he's dueling all of these people, he's not getting any benefit from the Elder Wand, correct?
He would not be, no.
It's just
all just
acting
him.
like a normal wand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you think if Harry wasn't the proper owner of if neither of them had the Elder Wand, you think Voldemort wins?
100%.
Why?
I don't think Harry's stepping into an arena, to use his own words, that is a little bit beyond him. I mean, look at the duel that happens at the end of Order of the Phoenix. That is a prodigious duel that's using... Harry taught Defense Against the Dark Arts. What did he teach in Defense Against the Dark Arts? Expelliarmus, and Stupefy, and Petrificus Totalis, and things of that nature. And Patronuses, which are advanced magic, but it's a Patronus. Dumbledore and Voldy were not using Expelliarmus and Stupefy. They were creating orbs of water surrounding a person. They were shooting flame snakes that were, the entire hall that they were in. Like, they were doing crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. He's got a bit more experience than Harry.
And he's a dueler.
He's a dueler.
And, I mean, it's like a trickle down. If Voldy can make Snape afraid, like genuinely scared.
Yeah.
And Bellatrix genuinely scared.
Yeah.
And being like, I can't mess with that dude. I can mess with all you. Mm-hmm. I can't mess with that dude.
Yeah. No, that's
and
fair.
Snape and Bellatrix are like playfully discarding Harry every chance we see when they match up. And it's like, I would always want to see Harry level up appropriately. Mm-hmm. And maybe not be on their level, but at least be... I could see where, like, oh, yes, Harry could stand in that arena with Voldy. Here, I think it's...
Okay.
The Elder Wand doing a lot of the heavy lifting here.
I can see your point.
So.
With that. I need to reread the last book.
Yeah. We'll get there, and we'll discuss it a lot more when we get to the Hallows and all of that. But why we're talking about this, again, is Albus himself says it will take uncommon skill and power to kill a wizard like Voldy, even without his Horcruxes.
And Dan took that personally.
I did. I took it as evidence of, like, I'm not crazy. He needs to be good. He needs to be really, really good. Not just, like, I can teach a couple of 15-year-olds good. Like,
yeah.
I'm doing complicated adult magic. It's like watching the Fantastic Beasts movies. They're all doing adult magic, and you're like, oh, that's actually really cool. Say what you want about the movies, which they're not all great. But the magic is cool. Because you're like, oh, that's clever how they did that. Or, ooh, I never would have thought to use that in that way. Mm-hmm. To attack somebody or to hide somebody or whatever. In the series that we get years 11 to 17. They're kids.
Yeah, they're kids.
They're not at that level yet.
No. That's
all I'm saying.
I think that's fair. So it's a valid criticism.
So when quotes like that come across, I'm like, I knew it! That quote also does damage to the people that are like, well, at that point, Voldy had 7 of his 8, because Harry is 1. Yeah. So it's really, they're both wrong here. Yeah. Even Albus is wrong. It's actually 8. Yeah. 8.
Do you think that that's why if Voldemort failed? 8's not a magic number. 7's magic.
Oh, well, yeah. Made 1 too many.
Yep.
Granted, he never actually meant to make that one.
That's true, but he still did.
Actually, further question. Albus says 7.
Yeah.
And he says 7 multiple times.
Yeah.
Do you think right now, as he's sitting here, he already knows it's 8?
Yes.
So he's just bold-faced lying to Harry right now.
Okay, so my whole thing with Dumbledore in this series is... And I know that people are anti-Dumbledore. I think Julie is anti-Dumbledore.
A lot of people are anti-Dumbledore.
A lot of people are anti-Dumbledore. I'm pro-anti-Dumbledore. I am pro-Dumbledore. But I think that he is like the master schemer. Like,
interesting you said scheme and not manipulator. Because you could interchange those words.
You could 100%.
One has a more negative context than the other.
I mean, that's fair. I was going to say plotter, and I chose schemer because I thought schemer sounded sneakier. So, I mean, manipulator totally fits. I think he's got a solid streak of Slytherin in him. But I think that he really does do things for the greater good. But I also do think he does play a lot of 8D chess. And I think it's a combination of, I think he's got good intuition. I think he's got his portraits that are helping him out. I think he has good connections with people. I think that there might actually still be, like, my headcanon is that he's got some level of, like, he's just next level when it comes to legilimens, or he's found some other way to do things without people being able to detect it. Mm-hmm. Because dude knows way too much for being the headmaster of a school. But not even in his own school. I mean, he knows...
everything from everywhere?
Yes. And future things from people, which that's the part where it doesn't feel like it's a coincidence that Dumbledore is able to so accurately predict so many things. I think that he has some ability to... I know he has said before he doesn't believe in seers, and he doesn't, he's kind of iffy on the whole... Divination, thank you. Divination magic. But I find that really interesting for a guy who is so able to accurately predict how things are going to fall. It makes me feel like maybe he's got excess supply of time turners somewhere, or I think he's messing around a little bit with some things. And I think at this point he already knows that it's Harry. I think he's suspected it since, like, book 2. he's very, very calculated with how much information he gives out, with his reactions to things. I think he does do it all. He is benevolent, I believe. But I think that he's kind of someone, in my headcanon, it's not dissimilar to Doctor Strange in Infinity War, where he's going through and he's trying to, at the very end, and he's trying to find all of the scenarios, and he goes through 14 million different scenarios, and there's only one where they come out ahead. I think that that's kind of his MO. Like, I think that he's focused on saving the world from Voldemort, and he realizes things that have to happen in order for things to go that route. Like, I don't think that he's creating new futures or anything like that, and that's also why he's recognizes that he has to be the one that he dies. I think that's part of the undercurrent of when he tells Snape, no, it has to be you. I think that he, and you can make the argument that, oh, he's saying that because he wants to spare Malfoy from killing him. I think that this is all a bigger picture to him. I think he knows that for his plan to work, or for this future to happen, it has to be Snape that kills him. So my headcanon for Dumbledore is very complicated in that sense.
So you're full into his "for the greater good" motto, 100%. Even though he supposedly dropped that motto in his teens.
No part of me buys that.
Fair enough.
I think that for as much as he professes to have distanced himself from that and from Grindelwald, I don't think that he has. But I do think that he's committed to trying to be that good, and I think that that's the difference.
I do agree with you that I think post book 2, he gets the diary, he starts piecing together what this might be, and then he thinks, why could Harry possibly be a Parseltongue? And that's probably, again, he needs proof. He needs for sure proof. And he doesn't really get that for sure proof until this literal chapter now.
Yes.
Years later.
Yes.
But he
knows.
He does mention that Harry got some traits from Voldy in this chapter. He does mention that Harry's parcel mouth in this chapter.
He's been dropping it since book 2, and I don't believe that he hasn't already either figured it out or seen it in some fashion.
So this actually leads into the next thing that I wanted to talk about in the spoiler section, which is, I think this is the chapter where Albus realizes, oh no, I am further behind than I thought I was. I thought I was ahead of the game. I'm actually behind the game. I need to catch up. I don't have time to catch up. I need a post-death plan. I think this is where he realizes, I'm not going to be able to do this.
I'm gonna softly disagree with that.
Okay.
I think this is the book that he realizes that. I think when he puts the ring on his hand and it deforms his hand, he realizes, I need to be more aggressive in in solidifying a post-death plan. I think this chapter adds to it. That's why I'm saying I'm only softly disagreeing with you. I agree that this chapter is, because it's solidifying the number of Horcruxes that he needs, and he's already agreeing to let Harry go with him on things, and so he's definitely putting things into place. My only disagreement with you is just, I think it's begun when the ring popped on him, because I think that's why he's started taking Harry to see Slughorn, and he's telling him, oh, don't be afraid to confide in your friends, and oh, I'm going to do these lessons with you. I think he's already begun the process of trying to offload some of this stuff.
I think the issues with the hand has definitely accelerated his plans.
Yes.
For sure. He's like, oh, I can't just sit on this anymore. I have to actually start doing things and be taking a more active role in this. For sure. That's without a doubt. The reason I say he realizes that he needs a post-death plan is, I mean, he's already talked about, obviously, with Snape, the idea of how this is all going to end. Like, how he's going to die.
Yeah.
That was the argument he was having with Snape. Like, you're asking too much of me. That's what he was asking. Is, it can't be Draco, it's got to be you.
Yeah.
Now when he sees this memory, he's like, oh, I thought I was doing good. We've already gotten 2 Like, I think we're good. I don't think I can get the other the other handful that we need if it truly is 7.
Yeah.
I think the human in him, because let's take away the almighty Albus Dumbledore for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He's still a person.
Yeah.
And I think he was probably hoping that, because he mentioned the diary. When he saw the diary, he assumed there was going to be more than one Horcrux, because he wouldn't put Voldy to just give away a Horcrux.
Right. Warning
and give
bells.
away his immortality.
Yeah.
So he assumed more than one. I'm going to bet he had hoped it wasn't going to be 7.
That's fair.
Like, I'm thinking Albus, the human side of him, was like, okay, what am I dealing with? 2, maybe 3. Okay, if I got rid of the diary, I get rid of the ring, maybe there's just one more that I need. Maybe it's just, or no, because he assumed 3 and 4. So maybe it's just the cup and the locket. Maybe it's just the cup and the locket.
Yep.
Maybe it's just those 2. I can maybe get those 2.
Yep.
And obviously we know the excursion that he's gone on. He thinks he's found the locket.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's found the 3rd.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I could just get that cup. If I could just get that cup. Oh, there's probably 7. I'm further away than I thought I was.
Especially realizing that one of them is the snake.
Yeah. And then obviously if he's aware that Harry is 1 by this point, which I agree with you, he does. I think he is aware that Harry is 1. I mean, that would be a post-death plan that he'd already have in place.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he would be able to bear the idea of him killing Harry.
No.
So...
I like how in all this he's probably thinking to himself, well, at least I don't have to deal with that one.
Kinda. I don't know. I just get the vibe from Dumbledore in this chapter of just like, oh no. Like, I'm not stunned. Because, I mean, you know, Voldy is Voldy.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh man, I thought I had this under control and I'm farther away than I thought I was. And it's just like, well, now I need to, not only do I need to accelerate my plans like I was at the beginning of the year, now I need to like redouble my efforts and be like, okay, Harry, I'm gonna need you on this like this weekend. We gotta like get on this. So
Harry, I wish he hadn't taken most of the school year to get this memory.
This confirmation for me, yeah. But I don't know. I just get that vibe. So
yeah. No, I mean I think that's fair. One thing that I thought of, and I don't think that this means anything, but I just thought it was kind of cute thinking about the Horcruxes.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this chapter, they're having the conversation of Voldemort, or Tom Riddle, realizes the importance of each of the Founders' artifacts, and that the goal was to have a Horcrux made out of something that belonged to each of the Founders because it was important to him because Hogwarts is a special place.
Mm-hmm.
And he succeeds in getting Slytherin's locket, Ravenclaw's diadem, Hufflepuff's cup, and he doesn't get Gryffindor's sword. But I did find it kind of cute or amusing that he inadvertently does get Gryffindor
through Harry.
Because he gets Harry.
Yeah. And I guess going back to the hat theory that we were talking about earlier, it would have been Gryffindor's hat. Like, Gryffindor took off the hat.
Yeah.
So it would have been Gryffindor's hat.
It would have been Gryffindor's hat.
But...
So, he did get all 4.
Yeah, he doesn't...
Just not how he wanted.
Not nearly how he wanted to do that, no. I think he would have gone for the sword. I think would have been his preference.
Sword
that would
probably...
have been an epic edition.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Do you have anything else for...
I do not.
We will wrap it up for Chapter 23, Horcruxes. We hope you've enjoyed all of this Horcrux soul death talk. And we will see you guys back for Chapter 24 next week. If you feel so inclined, please leave a 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. Also, leave a comment. Participate in those polls that we have on Spotify. And if you comment on Spotify or on Twitter or on Instagram, you might get shouted out on the podcast. You can find our social media, the Twitter, the Instagram, and our YouTube, all at Hogwarts a Pod. The YouTube is brand new. It is trying to grow, so please check us out over there. If you're on YouTube often, that would be awesome. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.